Minnesota has a large resource of cropland that is mainly being used to grow crops like corn and soybeans because these are the crops that were able to be scaled up for commercial farming, making them the most economic option for many farmers. With 11 million acres of state cropland producing $2 billion worth of cash crops like corn and soybeans, a majority of this is exported to foreign countries, as opposed to local markets, with Mexico, Japan, and China being our largest markets. Only around 7% of the food we grow in Minnesota goes to products we use or food for our tables. 1.6 million Minnesotans have low retail access to healthy food, which is nearly a third of the entire state's population. Those areas with low retail access include a large low-income population, as well as populations that are significant distances from the nearest grocery store. This poor access is also often correlated with unhealthy food options that are cheaper and geographically more convenient. These conditions exist in both rural and urban areas of Minnesota. There are currently many programs in place that aim to ease this disconnect between the food grown in Minnesota and the inaccessibility of good food here. These programs help support communities as well as farmers in need and are taken as precedent and inspiration to grow beyond their boundaries. One of these is the Conservation Reserve Program. The CRP started as a soil bank program in 1956 and assisted in addressing the surplus of crops resulting from the end of the Korean War. This program allowed farmers to remove land from production in exchange for rental payments and included major crops like wheat and corn. Under this program, farmers were allowed to retire land for 3, 5, or 10 years in exchange for annual payments. Over time and a series of reforms, this program became the Conservation Reserve Program that we know today. Now, its focus is primarily on conserving erodible land that can no longer stand up to commercial farming. Because of the crops that farmers grow, namely corn and soybeans, which require a great deal of land in order to make economic sense, most farmers require additional rented land to supplement the land that they own.
Through the proposal Food Ties, we strive to provide more accessible, nutritious foods for underserved communities today and provide more attainable land for future farmers. In this first phase of Food Ties, the government can capitalize on its CRP land by renting it out to farmers in order to feed underserved communities. By utilizing this land and forming a network with others, the farmer can take advantage of shared resources within their network, as well as receive a stipend from the government. By creating and being organized in a network, farmers can take advantage of government funding. These networks, in turn, can share tools and equipment in order to make more efficient use of each individual farmer's resources. This results in a potential for greater diversity in crop production while utilizing land that otherwise would remain out of production. Community members and farmers will be paired with each other through a common platform, community libraries. In order to qualify for the program, a community member must access the application found at their library and fill out their current financial situation and preferences list. Based on this application, they will qualify for the Food Ties program with a highly subsidized cost on fresh food and produce coming from their linked farmer.
In Phase 2 of Food Ties, we aim to make land more accessible to incoming farmers. In order to do this, specialized sales agreements known as options to purchase at agricultural value can be mutually beneficial to both young farmers looking to expand their farms as well as retiring farmers wanting to sell land. By utilizing an affirmative agricultural easement, the price of the land is made more affordable to the purchaser because the seller retains a great deal of control over the use of the land, limiting it to solely agricultural uses. The goals of the two farmers in the pairing, while being quite different, are both served well in this program. The young farmer can affordably expand a farm, while the retiring farmer has many of his needs and goals met. These would include income generated for retirement, keeping their farmland in farming, making their land more affordable to future farmers, and maintaining a legacy of sustainable farm stewardship. A contract will certify this agreement and offer a basis on which the pair can refer to. This contract clearly states the rights of the seller as well as the buyer. The Food Ties program adds the basis on which this can happen and leaves room for the pair to mutually customize their relationship. Generally, the transition will look like this. The transfer of farmland will gradually take place over a period of years. The first step will involve the young farmer purchasing a portion of an older farmer's land in order to have a farmstead and home, as well as some additional land to farm. Over time, the younger farmer will continue to purchase additional portions of land until after a series of purchases, the younger farmer owns all of the land and the older farmer completely retires. In the meantime, the older farmer can continue to either farm the land himself or rent it to another farmer for income. By selling the land in smaller parcels, the older farmer enables an easier transition of ownership for the younger farmer. In addition, by splitting the sale over a number of years, the retiring farmer enjoys a tax benefit by avoiding the entire sale in 1 year and being exposed to a higher tax bracket.
In the current scenario, the crops are limited to corn and soybeans, with minor amounts of alfalfa and spring wheat. The fields themselves are very large and likely dominated by larger farmers or corporations. The goals of this program are to increase the number of small farms, which have been fading for approximately the past 50 years, and also increase the diversity of crops produced by adding a large variety of vegetables and other garden crops. A change such as this cannot take place overnight, rather requiring a number of years and many smaller property transactions between the farmers. As the Food Ties program evolves the landscape over time and space, today's monoculture and rented land will shift hands as well as its market. Less land will become available for large farms and corporations as retiring farmers turn over their acres to a multitude of emerging small farms, giving them insight and ensuring their success to transform the agricultural landscape. With newly viable land and shared resources, more vegetable and specialty crop farms are encouraged to root themselves in their communities. This will provide more local resources to the farm's surrounding context, strengthening the accessibility between the average community and their food. With greater access to good food, people have a higher connection to the community and culture. When these communities are provided with financial and social relief through food ties, food swamps, or concentrations of commodity foods in socially disadvantaged places will start to disband and discontinue leveraging population demographics or geographical locations. With good food being more accessible to those that couldn't previously access it, more households are less financially strained than they were before. Those households can now use their expendable income on other things they need or put their money back into the local economy. In the short term, Food Ties will provide relief to communities through their library, as well as a bond with the individuals that cultivate their food. This will begin to increase the health and well-being of communities as soon as possible. On the long-term scope, Food Ties aims to set up an environment that welcomes new generations of farmers and encourages a more sustainable and locally centered foodscape.